This is Propulsion, the podcast where we dive deep into the nitty-gritty of taking your business and your practice to the next level. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a franchisee, or a financial planning pro, you are in the right place. We're talking the latest tech, best practices, and expert insights, all while keeping it real and entertaining. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get ready to blast off. I'm your host, Francois du Toit. Now, it's a very interesting conversation. And as I said, particularly yesterday, I had a very, very interesting conversation. And I think things have moved, and there's a lot of people who haven't realized that things are moving, right? We get stuck into what we know. Some people get stuck on the product side of things, and that's all they focus on is just what product don't you have and which product can I, sort of sell to you. And then you have the advice in the middle where we do financial needs analysis and we sort of look at things. But again, you typically maybe look at single needs a lot. It's not looking at the entire picture. One of the things we definitely don't do in financial advice is cash flow planning. So that's one of the things. And there's so much value that can be unlocked from that. Also, the conversation in that world seems to be very different, in these sort of three spheres, if you will. And I think it's quite important that you need to think about what you do versus what you say you do. Because at the end of the day, people will just say, well, I can call myself a certified financial planner because I have my CFP designation and I'm in good standing with the FBI and all that good stuff. But the work I do on a daily basis is not that of a certified financial planner. It is that of a product specialist, right? So that's all I do. I sell products. I look at summaries and I say, well, I see you don't have a retirement annuity. I think it's time we get a retirement annuity. And then sort of, the one up on that, I was at a conference where somebody was saying like the best thing you can ever do for a client is an F&A, right? And absolutely not doing an F&A and doing an F&A is massively valuable when you do. But that again can be very focused on one particular thing. Whereas you start thinking about financial planning, whether you call it lifestyle financial planning, real financial planning, I don't know, whatever you call it, it goes into a lot more detail, I think. And it's also a journey over time. Everything you do has a very specific purpose, and it doesn't always include product, but it often does. So it doesn't mean that when you move towards financial planning that you're no longer going to implement product and therefore don't know how to earn an income, because the only way we know how to earn revenue in our businesses is maybe through AUM, maybe through commissions, whatever. The way you earn your money doesn't matter. Ultimately, for me, it is about what are we doing to be more valuable to our clients? How do we support them? Because I think the worst thing in the world is when somebody has the most amazing product, the right amount of cover. Everything is just, you did the best job possible, but the client has no idea why they have it or what the role is. In fact, they feel frustrated every time they see that debit order go off because there's no bigger picture. And that is the part that is really important. So the first thing I really want to touch on is around the different roles that we have. We're busy running the advisor gauge where we are asking people to give us input. And one of the questions is, what do you call yourself? How do you refer to yourself when you are talking to clients? And there's some of them that stand out. The typical financial advisor, financial planner, that kind of stuff. But there's also other things in between there that people refer to themselves at. And there isn't, and I had a long conversation yesterday with someone about this, and he said that, and I fully agree with this, by the way, is that, and I wrote about this a long time ago. I think the article is still on my website. In 2013, I said, what is the difference between a broker, a financial advisor, and a financial planner? I even got taken on because I said I was a financial planner. I was like, yeah, but now I'm biased and blah, blah, blah. So it's not about being right or wrong or the one is better than the other, but each one of those has got a very specific value proposition for a very specific type of client. So as long as we can share that with people, right? To say, well, this is what I do. This is my proposition to you. And if that is what the client is looking for, I mean, happy days. There's nothing wrong with that. So today's thing is not about, oh, you can't be a broker. You have to become something else. I had a conversation via LinkedIn with a couple of people say, why are we still calling BCs broker consultants? Like, surely we've moved on from being a broker. We are now financial advisors, right? Because of phase, because of professionalization, the requirements. I mean, everybody should be in that space, except maybe if you're in short term, maybe if you're in medical aid. I mean, that's different, right? But when you deal with long-term products, investments, retirement, those kinds of things, it's typically financial advisor, whether it's independent or tied, doesn't really matter. It is the focus of what you do. It is the process that you take somebody through that is really the thing that is showing what you are, if I'm going to put it that way, in terms of the role that you play. So typically, if you still refer to yourself as a broker, the question is, do you still focus primarily on product? And are your clients clear on the fact that that's your proposition? You know the products inside out. You can match them with the best products, and happy, off you go. Financial advice, I think it's broader in scope. We do financial needs analysis. You look at, a little bit more in terms of determining the need, not just from a superficial level in terms of that. You might be looking at it from a, you need disability cover. Let me give you disability. How much can you afford? Okay, let me do it that way. Financial needs analysis will tell you how much you need, right? And then in contrast to that, then you look at what the client can afford, because maybe they can't afford the full cover. But typically, this is also very much, although the focus is broader, we typically focus on specific needs. Maybe there's a home loan that needs to be covered. Maybe there's just, we just want to do something for retirement. And you just focus on incorporating an investment. You could even in your business decide that we don't do risk planning. We only offer investment planning. I mean, that would also make it a little bit narrower in scope again. And then financial planning, in my sense, at least the way that I define it for myself, and I don't care whether I'm right or wrong. Yeah, this is just for me to say that, if you think about financial planning, what are we really trying to do? We're trying to see where money is going to, or where we want it to go to, and what is it that we want that money to enable at the end of the day. Because just like technology, money is just a tool. Money is not the end game. Hoarding a lot of money doesn't really matter at all. For some people it does. If you understand their values, it's very important to them because it brings them safety, it brings them peace, or whatever that may be. But ultimately it enables something else. And it is whether we understand what that something else is. And then, when you do financial planning, you start looking at what happens over the next few years. How do things move? And again, not all clients need that. I think we also need to be clear about that it isn't just about like, now I've got to offer financial planning to everybody. But you've got to be clear on what it is that you do offer and what you don't offer. That's very important, right? So distinguishing your role, I think it's really important as you move through that. In my view, if you just focus on product, you have a certain level of value. When you do financial advice on top of that, you've got another level of that. And when you really get into financial planning, that goes up a ton. And now I'm not even talking about all the other things you can now bolt onto that if you wanted to, or work with somebody that can help with that, like financial coaching. Sometimes people have got stuff to figure out and sort out and things like that. And we can coach and educate them, in that sense. You have transitionist planners that really focus on helping and guiding clients through life changes. So they are very skilled in that. So maybe even if that's not what you want to do because you don't like dealing with that emotional part of it, then partner with somebody that can do that, because at least then you ring fence those clients. But this is quite important. I think if I can just delve a little bit into the value of financial planning. I remember when I did my CFP, and I did probably not my CFP, but my postgrad in financial planning. Obviously, since the beginning, you are taught about holistic financial planning. It means that we look at everything. But I completely misunderstood the assignment. I thought that if I do holistic financial planning, that I have to look at every single thing every single time. So whenever somebody comes to see me and they want to get cover for a home loan, I would go, yeah, no, that's cool. But we just need to look at your will and your estate and some of your retirement as well, because we have to do holistic. That's what I subscribe to. That's what's important to me. And then as I got starting to get grayer and understand a little bit more, I realized that this is a journey, but we have to consider, there's a few things that you have to consider that is always in play. It doesn't matter whether we just do a risk cover for a home loan. It doesn't matter whether we just implement a retirement annuity for providing for retirement purposes. Because every single time we do something, the client's estate is impacted, their tax is impacted or might be impacted, their budget is impacted. And those things are all financial planning components that we need to look at. They are the foundation of financial planning. A lot of people think that estate planning, for example, is the very last thing you do just before Francois now lived his life. We now need to think about what happens now. But it's a very important aspect to understand where I'm going. So I had some meetings this week and last week with people talking about our plans for the business, etc. And I need to get the structures right now, because it doesn't help doing it once we've already done it, because it's stupid then. So understanding and then saying, well, if we do this, what is the impact on my estate? What is the impact on the rest of my family if something does go wrong, or we do sell, or we do whatever we might do? I'm not planning to sell, just by the way. I'm just saying any business that, whenever there's a change, how does that impact? So how do we do a buy and sell, for example, without considering what the impacts are from a tax point of view, what the impacts are? And I've seen this, right? A lot of times when you sell your business, it triggers CGT. When there's a buy and sell, that's an actual sale. It's a disposal for CGT purposes. And very few financial planners or financial advisors take into account that there's going to be an additional CGT, because we focus so much on what's the business worth that we never consider, but now this individual in his personal capacity is selling those shares and therefore triggering CGT in his personal capacity or her personal capacity. And this is where financial planning is really valuable, because it's forever considering everything for a particular event, for a particular transaction, if you will. And also financial planning, in my mind, is very much focused on the client. It's very much focused on the things I spoke about earlier, their fears, their values, their dreams. A lot of the conversation happens there. And then the financial planning happens, and then where appropriate products are implemented. But there's a lot of value in doing this and understanding how do we guide clients to stick with their plans. So again, very important. When you do this, the long-term outcomes of the clients improve dramatically because of that. Also, the way that there's lots that play into this, right? So I'm just focusing on one element today, but there's lots of things that play into this, from your client experience to everything else. But the biggest thing is that if you look at research, it says that financial planning leads to better financial outcomes. People with financial planners and without financial planners get a better outcome than those without. So very important to know and understand that. The challenge today is, and I say this in the most loving way I can possibly do, is that you've got to sit down and say, well, am I a broker? Just use those plain old language. Am I a financial advisor? Like it's defined in FASE, because FASE is all about financial advice leading to a product. Financial planning is not really governed probably by FASE, unless you also implement product, unless you also advise. So it's almost like these three things. The financial advisor is also a broker, and the financial planner is also a broker and a financial advisor, but they also do financial planning. So can you see how you roll up the value when you work with clients in that way? When you really connect with clients, one of the things we talk about a lot, Adam and myself, is around emotional engagement. Really thinking about creating an emotional connection with the client, but also introducing tension into that relationship and strategically in that sense. So you want to be very strategic when you do that. It's about, saying, well, this is fantastic. This is your goal. So what has kept you from doing anything about it up to this point? Suddenly they have to face their own things and they have to think about that. But when you are able to connect in that way, you're able to have these kinds of conversations, really focus on them instead of the product or the investment that we want to or need to implement. It fosters loyalty like you can't believe. It builds a relationship like you can't believe. If you think about the trust equation, right, there's sort of three elements at the top. So there's three things that play a role if somebody's building or you building trust with someone. The first one is obviously credibility. So your experience, your qualifications, all of those good things. Then also your reliability. So what are the things that you say you will do and then do? And then intimacy. And intimacy is about how much information somebody shares with you. The more private, the more personal, the more important to them. Like the more of that they share with you, that's an indication of trust. So when you emotionally connect with clients through this process of financial planning, and not to say that you can't as a financial advisor, by the way, but I think because the focus is half the client, or half maybe something else, or maybe if you say, but that's not true, then maybe you're not a financial advisor. Maybe you are more of a financial planner. But in that sense, you build that intimacy, And because you focus so much on the client, the fourth element, which is below the line for the trust equation, is self-orientation. Because you're not worried about yourself, you're not worried about implementing anything specifically, you are clearly focused on the client, you're interested in the client. Intimacy goes up because there's emotional connection, but now also because I'm focused more, the trust goes up even further because of that part at the bottom, which is not focused on me, it's focused on the other person. So client loyalty is a very, very important part as well. And of course, peace of mind. Peace of mind, not only because we do holistic planning and we consider everything, but it's because we care. It's clear that we care, right? Because the type of conversations we have is different. So again, when somebody does contact you for the first time, I've had these conversations plenty of times, as recently as yesterday, but a lot of times in the UK, we've had lots of these conversations. We've had here lots of these conversations. A client never, ever contacts you to talk about their life, right? They phone you because they have a tax problem. They phone you because they have a problem that their premiums are too expensive. They have a problem that their investment is not growing. That's always the entry point. But unless we start changing the conversation and adding more value, they wouldn't know what's possible. They only know what's possible because of what they know and what their past experience has been. So there's obviously a way to transition into financial planning. It's not just, you can probably, some of you might be able to just switch off the one and just move on to the other one. Some people will have to transition into that and sort of do a few things. So I think the first step is to reframe your role. Go sit and think about what is it that you do, not what you call yourself. What do you do? The problem we sit with is that clients are confused. They don't know what we do. They don't understand, right? You talk about lawyers, you talk about engineers, all of these different people. They probably have an idea of what they do, specifically in the medical fraternity. They will definitely know what the different doctors do. But in our world, they don't know what the difference is between a broker, financial advisor, financial planner. And you'll see it doesn't matter whether you're independent or tied. It's about what you do, right? So what role are you fulfilling? So reframe that role and make sure then that you move that from saying, you know what, I can add so much more value than just sharing the best product with you or just telling you about the best product. If you're unsure of what you're doing and you are on social media, you do create blogs and things, go see what you write about, go see what you talk about. It'll be very clear to you where your focus is. Then, of course, you've got to enhance your skills, and that never stops anyway. The Uncle Vidi rules in my world. Francois, you've got to learn something new every day. And that's what we got to do, right? So you never arrive, you're never there, you never know everything, you've never experienced every single possible client problem that you could ever have. Some people think they have, but you haven't. So you've got to enhance those skills. You've got to say, well, these are the things that I'm really good at. And if these are the different aspects of financial planning, maybe tax planning is one of them, maybe doing cash flows is one of them, understanding some other legislations and things are part of that. So then maybe I need to go upskill myself in that sense, or maybe reskill myself because I haven't worked with those things in a while. One of the most cool things about all of this is that the tools we have today to help us unlock and enable client experiences and to engage clients and to get people to engage with us, whether we're together in person or whether they're sitting across the world. Technology, we have to adopt technology. I had a massively long meeting this week with one of our members. It's been a fantastic conversation. He has a list of 2 pages long of his tech stack of things that he's using. So currently looking at it and saying, well, what's unnecessary? What's necessary? Is this the best thing for what you want to do? They've got a big business in the sense of that they do everything, right? Short-term medical aid, they do investments, they do risk, they do fiduciary services, they've got tax services. So it's a big business, but they've got lots of moving parts, but they're using technology to the best of their ability at the moment. And you have to think about what problem are you trying to solve? What experience are you trying to create? And what tool will work best for me in that sense? And I can promise you the tool you have is probably going to go a long way, because you're never going to find that perfect tool. You all know that. Let me not belabor that point. But you've got to adopt technology if you want to transition to financial planning. Specifically, you want to get a great cash flow planning. Discounted cash flows doesn't really do much, because let me give you an example. If you think about discounted cash flows, right, that's meant to have a regular cash flow. So it's a cash flow that starts, it increases at a certain rate for a certain amount of time. There's no irregularity around it. So that says that, you can't afford to retire, because at the moment I can't afford to save the 10,000 Rand a month because I'm paying off my car, I'm paying off my house, I'm doing all these things. Money is going somewhere else. So in that sense, it just shows me here's a shortfall. This is what I should pay. In a cash flow planning tool, I can go and say, well, there's the car. Oh, in 3 years' time, I stop paying the car. And I can redirect that money at that point in time towards my retirement goal. And what does that do? And what does that look like? So those are the kinds of things that you cannot do. Also, it's very hard to sit with an F&A tool with a client and have a conversation with them around it. Whereas a cash flow planning tool, often you can sit with a client and just do the adjustments as you're talking, because there's sliders and there's all sorts of cool things that you can show them. Oh, you do this, then there's an immediate effect. You can see what the difference is. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So technology is so important. Then you got to start communicating your value a lot more, and do that through not saying what it is that you do. Tell stories about what you've done for clients. Tell them, like, here's a scenario. Client got to us. This was the thing. And this is how we changed. This is what we did. And eventually this was the outcome, for example. And obviously, if you're new in the short term, you can just say, look, just by doing this, we realized the client is maybe spending too much tax. I'm just taking an example. And, as part of the planning process, we also managed to do that, because the last thing you ever want to do is just save someone tax, because that's not necessarily the best approach. But you've got to start communicating. We are in a business where we need to educate clients all the time. So the content that you put out should change. Your newsletters should change to help you with that. Also, you got to think about, if you focus just on one thing, how, like investment planning, for example, or retirement planning, how do you incorporate the other things? So do you partner with someone? Do you outsource to people? Do you get people into your business that do that? Doesn't mean that you yourself need to do that, but also think about this from a business point of view and how you do that. And there will be a lot of challenges to overcome. There will be a lot of obstacles and things like that, but work through them systematically, figure it out. That's that's how you grow, right? And here's the thing that I said the other day, is that your business can't grow unless you grow. So moving from financial advice to financial planning is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to push you out of your comfort zone. It's going to get you there. But it's going to be worth that process. I think maybe also, if you think about the future of financial planning, this is something I spoke about since 2020 and so on, but the landscape is shifting. And why is it shifting? It's shifting because the clients know more. There's more information available than ever before. I have a video that we'll release shortly, but the other day I sat with someone and I showed them how I had a conversation in real time, not typing, but having a literal conversation with ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to act like a lifestyle financial planner. And what is it that I want to do? And we started having a conversation. I interrupted it. It then said, okay, sorry, and then said and asked me questions and all sorts of stuff. And although I needed to guide it here and there to do that, the fact is that a lot of people have got access to tools like that can at least give them a start and a level of knowledge that would enable them to have a better conversation with you. The question is, do you want it to learn from a ChatGPT or do you want them to learn from you? But what's going to be best? So we've got to think about that. But just understand that clients know more. They are hearing it from experiences or about experiences that their friends have with other financial planners who's not just doing advice and not just being brokers, for example. So you really got to reflect on what you're doing at the moment, the way that you put your business together. You know, a lot of people are focusing at the moment around the fact that, oh, it's so expensive to do business. Oh, it's so hard to do business. I can't do this on my own anymore. I want to go join someone else. And that's all fair. But be careful that you don't make moves because you feel like you don't have any other choice. Maybe if you take the time to rethink the business and you see how and where you need someone and how and where you need the right technology, or at least just use the technology you've got better, you'll be amazed at the changes that you can make. There are loads of people with small businesses who's running a fantastic FSP, and they don't have the same complaints. Yeah, they're complaining about regulation. Yes, they're complaining about the costs and all of that, but they're still profitable. They're still doing the things. They still do what they love because they are structured. They have systems and processes and tech and people in place. So that's important, right? So the big value for me that if you move beyond financial advice, and financial advice, maybe I should have defined this in the beginning. If you look at how FAIS defines financial advice, I mean, it's anything that you do that leads a client to purchase a financial product, right? It doesn't talk about budgets. It doesn't talk about cash flows. It doesn't talk about many other things that have got nothing to do with product that we do need to help clients with. Think about the value that you can add if you have a business client. Do you think that you can only add value with business assurance or by putting employee benefits in place? No, there's so much more you can do in business, and you can help people that's got nothing to do with that. And because you have this trusted relationship, it can really make a big difference. So if you move beyond financial advice, you'll build deeper client trust. You'll have better outcomes, and promise you're going to have a sustainable business model. And this, again, is not about charging fees or assets under management or commissions. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about the value you add. And when you add value, the money will flow. I can promise you that. And so take that first step. Think about this over the next few weeks and see what you can do. And, I think clients don't just need advice. They need a plan. And more than that, I think they honestly, genuinely want to be involved in the creation of that plan. All righty. Fantastic. So let me just quickly see what's happening here. So let me just briefly, we've got some time. So let me show some stuff. Carol said, your client with questions to discover more, strongly suggest a financial coaching course for financial planners if you just need that edge to know how, what, and when. And I think it's an important point that Carol is making, because it's not to say that you want to become a coach, right? I think some people will find like, I want to be a coach. I don't want to be a financial planner. I don't want to be that. And you could possibly be both if you wanted to. But I think what this is really about is that there are tools and techniques and frameworks that you can very effectively use in your financial planning process. It is about learning to ask questions and not giving answers. I think it's the first big one. The most value we can add to somebody is to let them talk about their situation, let them talk about what it is and what makes them do things or don't make them do things. So fantastic, right? So Neil saying, very true. You need a roadmap to work with a client with small steps, bite-sized chunks to work on along the way. And then Frank says, so true at Carol, it's important to continually learn and grow so that we can guide our clients through both the summer and winter seasons of life as their trusted advisor. Thank you very much, Frank. Ladies and gents, that's it for today. Next week is the last episode. We will still let you know what we are doing next week for the final one. As I said, I know Nikki and Lalani is going to do the news together. That's going to be awesome. Igno is here. I'm going to give a quick tech tip that I know, and then we'll see what the main segment will be and what we're going to do. But I will share that with you early next week. on the socials and probably on email. But until then, geez, thank you. Stay safe, be blessed and prosper. Have a fantastic weekend. And of course, continue to raise the bar. Love you lots. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of Propulsion. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Remember to tune in every Friday at 8 a.m. South African time for our live show called Propulsion Live. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, hit that subscribe button or the follow button and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who you think would get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.